Hey everyone, my name's Jay. Welcome back to Plot Leakage. This is episode 15, and today we have our first look at the Sentry as he appears in full costume in the new Thunderbolts movie. The reason this has been released now is because of the Funko Pop toy, which is based on the character from the film. What ends up happening, if you don't know, toys that are made for merchandise for a new movie, these toys have to be made well in advance before the movie comes out. So what ends up happening is that the toy companies know what characters are going to look like, but maybe the character is supposed to be a surprise for the movie. But the toys have to be made early so that they can be released in time with the movie. Toys take time to make. So this Sentry Funko Pop, they've probably just finished it to the point where it's ready to go in the boxes, but the movie's not out yet. But somewhere, somehow, someone is going to release it because they know people are curious to know what the character looks like. So based on the Funko Pop, we can predict what the character will look like in the movie because it will be based, the Funko Pop is based on the movie design. So I'm showing you some versions of what the Sentry looks like currently in the comics, but you will now be able to see what he's going to look like in the movie based on the Funko Pop design. So here we have it, our first look at the Sentry in full costume, and right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think it looks really cool. I like it. I like it a lot. I like the... First things first, the people are going to complain about are the lines. I'm talking about the lines on the costume that make it look like armor. People complain that the MCU has an over-design problem where too many of the costumes have random lines for no reason. The thing is, if they don't put those lines there, the costume ends up looking exactly like it does in the comic, which isn't actually good for real life. It looks like a skin-tight onesie pajama situation that just looks a bit too cartoony. Spider-Man's costume is lucky because for the most part, even if you adapt it accurately, it still looks really cool in real life. But like Superman's costume, the Sentry's costume, I'd say that Superman and Sentry have very similar costumes, just a color difference. If you don't add design lines, it ends up just looking like cosplay. So I think the lines are necessary, and I think that when done right, they can look really cool. And this is an example of when it's done right and it looks really cool. I love the belt and the way they've adapted the Sentry's S logo. I love the boots. I love the color coordination. And yeah, I think it's an extremely comic accurate looking design and costume, but they brought it to life in a very realistic and effective way. I say all this to say that I'm a big fan, and I think that people should, have an open mind and at the very least wait until they see it in the actual movie. On top of that, it would have been nice to see what Steven Yeun might have looked like in the costume as the character. Big Steven Yeun fan, love Invincible, love Beef, but it is what it is. I'm sure that the guy they got to do it instead, whose name escapes me right now, is going to kill it. He arguably does look more comic accurate, given that Sentry is a white guy. I'm curious to see how his hair ends up getting so blonde, because in the trailers we've seen his hair is kind of brownish, but here it looks very blonde. The Sentry normally has like bright blonde hair, so we'll see how that goes. I'm also curious to know if he actually got really buff for this role, or if it's just going to be padding in the costume. But I like this type of superhero, Superman-esque costume. It's giving Superman and Lois's Superman costume, which I liked. Man of Steel, which was a really cool costume. So I'm here for it. I think it looks really cool. I'm sure the Sentry, when he goes void mode, will also have a very cool looking costume, and it will be like a dark shadow version of this. But I like it a lot. I think it looks cool, and I'm kind of glad that they're leaving the final look as more of a surprise for the actual movie. But so far, so good. I mean, definitely don't have any real complaints. I know that in some iterations of the comics, rather than yellow and blue, it's usually yellow and black. But I can't complain. I think they've done a really good job adapting the comics. And again, if there's ever a costume that can benefit from the action lines, it's this type of costume. Otherwise, it would just look too cartoony and too silky and too arguably ridiculous. I do think it's interesting to note that despite the fact I'm a huge James Gunn fan, if we're talking about Superman-esque costumes, I do think this costume looks way better than the new Superman costume for the new Superman movie. I'm not a fan of that costume. I'm just not. I really don't like it. And maybe when I watch the movie, my opinion will change. It's not even the trunks. That costume does have design lines, but because the costume doesn't, the shape of that Superman costume is not muscular. It doesn't look skin tight. It's not really a muscle suit. And I do think that these type of superhero costumes look best when it's a like muscle suit, when it makes the character look muscular. Like even Homelander, I think, has a better looking costume than the new Superman because it makes him look strong. This new Superman, it just looks like he's wearing a jacket. You can't see any muscles. I have no idea if the Superman actor got buff for the role. And I am of the opinion that Superman is supposed to look muscular, buff, and strong. Yes, he's friendly, but you can be a big, buff, muscular guy and still be friendly. I don't think Superman needs to look wimpy to be friendly. You can have muscles and be a jacked dude and still be friendly. And I think that the new Superman costume misses that. But hey, at least we got this really cool looking costume, man. Like, I'm loving it a lot. It makes me want to see the Sentry as a playable character in Marvel Rivals, to see another design like this, because, again, most of his comic book costumes, whilst I do like them, I would prefer a updated version that looks a bit more like this. What can I say? Sometimes the action lines actually look good and help with the costume. So let me know what you guys think. Do you like this costume? Do you think it was adapted well? Do you think it looks nothing like the comics? Do you think it looks stupid? Do you think you could have done better? Do you have a concept art you can show me that looks better? It would have been cool to see Steven Yeun in a costume, but it is what it is, you know? He'll probably do a different live-action superhero movie one day, or Marvel will give him a different role. But for now, we've got Invincible, and I'm loving that. I also hope that this Sentry costume that we have goes like full black dark mode whenever he goes Void. That will be really cool to see as well, give us some variety. I also wonder if his Void will have white hair like it does in the comics. We'll see. I'm not fully sure on those details, but if you do want to know the full plot leak to Thunderbolts and all the spoilers, please go check out my previous videos. I've made 2 covering the entire plot and what exactly is going to happen in this movie. I know what happens, but I don't know what it, I don't know exactly what the characters look like. So this is a new reveal for all of us. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, like or sub or and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.